there, then there's probably not a good reason for you to be dating, to be honest. Why am I at this job? Yeah, I understand that we all need to eat, we all need to live, we have bills to pay. But you know what? If you can't find God in your workplace, then there's something wrong there. Honestly. There really is something wrong there. God has got to be the center of what you ground yourself in. And everything that pulls on us is pulling us in a direction. But the cool thing is that God goes everywhere. So if your job pulls you a little bit, guess what? Well, God, He just pulls God along too. And you don't have to get all stressed out. You don't have to get all pulling your hair out. Why? Because God's there. And He's going with. Why are you in school? Why are you studying for that one thing? Well, God's a part of it. I don't know what it may be, but God is it. God's the reason. The reason you want to teach, or the reason you want to become a businessman, or a businesswoman, or a professor, or whatever it is, God's there. But if that is the center of who you are, and God is something that you're trying to add in, it's not going to work for you.
Right.
That means you're not all God's man or all God's woman. And that's when it gets really, really sticky for us. Now, Jesus calls on Him to take responsibility for this. He says, look, you need to go and do likewise. Even in the beginning, He says, what do you see in the law? How do you read it? So it's a personal responsibility for all this, but He does say, love the Lord your God with all of your heart and all of your soul and all of your strength and all of your mind. But there's another word there. And. See, what is the word and? In addition to. Come on, English majors. And is a conjunction. Junction. What's your function? See, you all grew up with me. You all remember. That's the only way I got through grammar. Trust me. I had to sing my way through Schoolhouse Rock. That's right, and but nor. That means you very far. So, a conjunction, it means it goes with. Just as important as. You can't do the one without doing the other. And. What's the and? Love your neighbor as yourself. You know, the funny thing is, we can focus on the first one and completely ignore the second one.
That's true.
We don't have the and in our life a lot of times. And we think that we're getting very far along with God. And honestly, we're not. We fail miserably when it becomes about ourselves and our relationship with God alone. You realize that? We can put all of our time and all of our effort and all of our energy into loving God with all of our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our strength and all of our mind, and then we leave it at that. And we fail as Christians. Because no and. The funny thing about that is who Jesus is talking to. The lawyer, the teacher of the law, the learned one. The Pharisees. They're just like him. And in Matthew 23, what's the thing that He says about the Pharisees? Woe to you. Why? Because on the outside, yeah, you look great. You know what? Nobody would doubt that you love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind, with all of your strength. But man, you don't care about anybody else. And on the inside, you're just full of dead men's bones, is what He says. It's like, good. You know, that means more to me after I talk to your parents. And Jess's mom is studying to be a, what do you call it? Funeral director. And I'm like, man, the world needs those, but not me. No way. And she was telling us stories, and I just kind of, oh boy, it was cool, but I loved it. It is funny, you know. But you know what? It reminded me of this. that on the outside we can look really, really, really good, but on the inside we're just dead. Why? Honestly, I think because there's no and. We call ourselves Christians, and on the outside, man, we can paint a good picture. Some of us don't even paint that good of a picture on the outside. And we should just seriously repent. Because you're mean and you're cruel and you're not understanding, and I mean there's a lot of things that we can be that we are just not loving God with all of our heart, soul, mind, or strength. Then we do need to repent. Then there's a lot of us who look very good on the outside, but we've got no and in our life. We've got no others in our life. And honestly, we forget what Christianity is all about. Christianity has always been an others religion.
Right. Yeah.
Always. And it always will be an others religion. Jesus, from the very moment he meets his guys and says, look, I'm going to make you fishers of men. In other words, what does that mean? It's about others. To the very end of his life, when he was about to ascend into heaven and said, I want you to go make disciples of all nations. In other words, take this message everywhere. Never once did he say, just build yourself your own little church and keep it to yourself and you guys all look good. They actually tried to do that. They were centered in Jerusalem, and we'll learn this next year when we study Acts, but they were centered in Jerusalem, and God had to bring persecution in order for them to be scattered. Because they were focused only on themselves, really. Well, this lawyer had trouble with that. He didn't like that. Jesus said, do this and you will live, but he wanted to justify himself. Why? He wanted to look good on the outside.
Yeah.
What does he say? Well, who's my neighbor? In other words, well, now who do I really have to do this to? He wanted a list. Here's a Jew talking to a Jew, expecting a Jewish answer. Your fellow Jew. What did he get? But again, Jesus switches things up. He's no longer talking cryptically to anybody. Even when he gave a parable, he gave a straight up parable. Something that you could read and go, man, I get it. And if I don't get it, you just slap me now. It says, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. Again, he used a very common thing, the road from Jerusalem to Jericho, the Thieves' Road. It's the most dangerous road in all of the land. It goes through a lot of mountain passes and turns and a lot of places where they could hide, and more people got robbed on this road than anywhere else. So he uses this road. It says he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road. When he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So to a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. Interesting. A Levite is a priest. You know, but a priest is a Levite that actually got called. So he was called to duty. Alright, so we'll talk about that in a minute. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring oil and wine. He put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, gave him to the innkeeper to look after him, and said, when I return, I'll reimburse you of any extra expense you may have. Alright, let's look at these guys. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the first 2 because Jesus, he just didn't want to waste time. The parable was obvious. The first 2, a priest, a Levite. These are Jews in a Jewish land coming up on a Jewish person. And yet, did they give him even the time of day? No, they were like, and they just completely ignored him. Yeah, they may have had their excuses. You know, the priest, if he came in contact with that man and that man was full of blood, he would have been unclean. It wouldn't be able to serve in the temple. So, essentially he was on his way to church and didn't want to be bothered. We can relate with that, can't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Levite, who knows what his excuse was? He just didn't want to be bothered with it. Too busy. Had something going on. That man is beneath me. Both of them are thinking that. And you know what? I know we can all think that about somebody or another. Somebody at work, oh, they are beneath me. Somebody at school, oh, you know what? They are beneath me. And I know how that is. I remember. I don't think there's any person in here that went through high school that doesn't understand the structure, the hierarchy of high school. There's always somebody beneath somebody else. And it's always people's opinion, and that's it. But then a Levite comes, or a Samaritan comes. And I think Jesus uses Samaritan for a very good reason. Now remember who the Samaritans are. In the Old Testament, when the whole nation was together, they ended up splitting into two because of Rehoboam. And so it was the northern 10 tribes who never had any good king. They all had bad kings, and they were a bad nation. And then it was the southern tribe of Judah and Benjamin, and they had several good kings, but a lot of bad kings too. God was getting sick of them and sent the Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians to come and take them all prisoner. And he got the northern kingdom first. And what he did is he took a lot of people out and then took a lot of his people and put them in their place. And so the Jews that were left, what they did is they started intermarrying. And so they had some of the beliefs of the Jews and then some of the beliefs of the Assyrians or the Babylonians or the Medo-Persians or whomever it was that God used or whomever the people were. And so they were kind of a mixed race, and they were half-breeds, essentially. That's why the Jews didn't like it. The Jews were the pure blood, and these were the half-breeds. Well, the Samaritans still wanted to worship God, and they built their own temple. Not too far away from Jerusalem, actually. And it became this whole big blood feud, quite literally. It was a blood feud. And that's where Ezra said, you got to get rid of all the women that are not Jewish. It became this huge, huge issue for them. They hated each other. For generations after generation after generation, they continued to hate each other, and this is the person that Jesus used. So here's a Samaritan who had every reason to hate the Jew that was beat up. And he comes upon him on the road, and this is the one that stopped. Let me ask you something. What characteristics do you see in this man? What did he show? Compassion. What else? Sacrifice. Empathy. Giving. Service. Care. Genuine concern and care. Generosity.
Willing to get dirty, bloody, living upon the
Inconvenience. Absolutely. He was willing to go the extra mile no matter what the cost to him was going to be. And even patience. You know what it would have taken to stop and to bandage him and then to get him up on his donkey and then to walk him to most likely a Jewish village, and confront a Jewish innkeeper. It took great humility to do all of that, along with patience. And then he busts out his wallet and he breaks out 2 denarii, which would have cared for that man, and you got to hear this, for over a month. Okay, he didn't give him one night at the Hilton. He gave him over a month's ability to recuperate. And that is room and board. And on top of that said, I'm going to follow up on this. I'm coming back. And when I come back, I'll settle anything else that may have occurred. I'll settle any other debt with you. So I'm going the extra mile to care for this. Wow.